We often assume that maturity is a matter of age, a natural result of growing older. The older you get, the wiser you become, right? But here's the harsh truth. Age doesn't guarantee psychological growth. You can be 35, successful in your career, socially admired, and still respond to emotional conflict like a teenager who never learned how to sit with discomfort. That's because real maturity doesn't come from the outside. It's not a diploma, a wedding ring, or even motherhood. It's an internal transformation, one that many women never go through. From a young age, women are praised for being composed, nurturing, and agreeable. But what happens when these expectations replace the actual work of emotional development? What happens when a girl is taught to be perfect, but never taught how to handle chaos, uncertainty, or her own shadow? Carl Jung believed that psychological immaturity isn't always a conscious choice. Sometimes, it's the natural consequence of avoiding the deep and uncomfortable parts of yourself. And in modern society, this avoidance is easy. It's rewarded even. A woman can dress the part, smile at the right time, and say all the right things, and no one will question whether she's truly grown. But deep inside, she may still feel like a scared little girl, hoping someone else will come and save her from the mess inside her own mind. Because here's the truth Jung wanted us to confront. The greatest illusion of adulthood is thinking that time alone will heal us. It won't. Only self-confrontation does. Number 1. Why some women never grow up. So why do some women, despite their intelligence, education, and life experience, remain emotionally immature? Why do they repeat the same relationship patterns, struggle with decision-making, or crumble under pressure while appearing perfectly fine on the surface? Carl Jung would say, look deeper. Immaturity often stems from hidden roots, old wounds, cultural expectations, and unconscious habits that have never been examined. And the first root, overprotection. Many women were raised in environments where everything was decided for them. Their parents, often with good intentions, shielded them from pain, failure, and responsibility. They never learned how to fall and get back up. Instead of being taught how to think for themselves, they were taught to obey, to wait, to depend. So as adults, they continue that pattern, waiting for someone else to take the lead, to make the decision, to clean up the mess. The second root is trauma, emotional wounds left unresolved. A woman who grew up in chaos, betrayal, or abandonment may fear responsibility not because she's lazy, but because she's terrified. To her, taking charge of her own life feels like walking into a battlefield without armor. So she retreats. She clings to relationships not for love, but for safety. She avoids choices that demand risk, and calls it not the right time. The third root is society itself. From a young age, women are conditioned to seek approval. Be pretty. Be polite. Be liked. Don't make waves. Don't speak too loudly. Don't be too much. This constant need to please others replaces the natural process of discovering who they truly are. And when your identity is built on reflection, on how others see you, you never get to know the woman in the mirror. Immaturity, then, isn't always visible. It's not about acting childish. It's about not knowing who you are without a script, without someone to tell you what to do, without a role to play. Number 2. The Puella Eterna, the girl who never became a woman. Carl Jung called her Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. She's not defined by age, but by mindset. She might be 28 or 42. But emotionally, she's stuck in a world of fantasy, idealism, and avoidance. She dreams of love that will save her. She believes that one day someone, usually a man, will come and fix everything. Her life, her past, her fears, all of it, and until that day comes, she waits. She might appear whimsical, lighthearted, even charming. People may describe her as fun, free-spirited, or romantic. But beneath the surface is a refusal to grow. She avoids hard conversations. She escapes reality through daydreams, entertainment, or dependency. She can't handle rejection without spiraling. She chases the highs of emotion, but avoids the weight of responsibility. And in relationships, she doesn't build partnerships, she seeks rescuers. The Puella Eterna often lives in stories, not in truth. She believes in the one, in soulmate fantasies, in perfect moments that somehow never arrive. And when reality hits, as it always does, she panics. She runs, or she blames, or she crumbles. Jung saw this pattern not as a flaw, but as a sign of fragmentation. A woman trapped in this state isn't evil. She's lost. She hasn't yet faced the darker parts of herself, the ones that are uncomfortable, painful, or even shameful. She hasn't done the work of becoming whole. And without that work, she remains suspended. A girl pretending to be a woman, waiting for life to feel right instead of creating a life worth living. Number 3. Immaturity isn't just personal, it's cultural. It's easy to point fingers at individuals. To say she's immature, she's irresponsible, or she refuses to grow up. But Jung warned us, immaturity isn't just a personal failure. It's a cultural design. We live in a world that rewards the eternal girl. Look around: movies, social media, even advertising. All glamorize the woman who's playful, adorable, dependent, slightly clumsy, emotionally fragile. She's the quirky girl who doesn't know what she wants, but somehow ends up getting everything she needs because she's cute and endearing. She's not asked to be grounded, wise, or self-possessed. She's just asked to be liked. And so many women perform. They shrink themselves. They hide their depth. They trade their voice for validation, not because they're weak, but because they've been trained to believe that real womanhood, mature, steady, self-responsible womanhood, is unappealing. The woman who thinks for herself is called difficult. The woman who says no is cold. The woman who asks for more is too much. So what do? They stay small, pleasant, agreeable, digestible. Jung would say this is the price of cultural conformity. When society glorifies youth, innocence, and passivity, it punishes individuation. It punishes the very process that leads to psychological growth. And so women stop evolving, not because they can't, but because they're taught it's safer not to. Immaturity becomes a performance, rehearsed over time, rehearsed so well that even the performer forgets it's an act. Number 4. What immaturity really looks like. Psychological immaturity doesn't always show up the way you expect. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw tantrums in public or refuse to do chores. No, immaturity is often subtle, graceful, even beautiful on the surface. It looks like a woman who falls in love too fast, and falls apart even faster when things get hard. It looks like constantly chasing the thrill of romance, without ever building something real. It looks like avoiding structure, responsibility, and routine, not because she can't, but because she doesn't want to. It looks like hopping from job to job, passion to passion, always starting, never finishing. It looks like needing attention, needing validation, needing someone else to say, "You're enough," because deep down, she's not sure she is. Sometimes it's dressed in makeup and elegance. Other times it hides behind charm, wit, or sweetness. But no matter how it looks, the pattern underneath is the same: avoidance. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of the hard emotional work that real adulthood demands. And then there's the fear of aging. Not just because of wrinkles or gray hair, but because with age comes the expectation of depth, of wholeness, of having it figured out. For the Puella Eterna, aging feels like being exposed, like the performance is coming to an end, and she doesn't know what to do without the applause. That's the cost of staying in eternal girlhood. You never really grow. And eventually the world notices. Worse, you notice when everything begins to feel hollow, repetitive, and numb. Number 5. The shadow feminine and why women fear their own strength. Carl Jung believed that every person has a shadow, the hidden part of the psyche we don't want to see, and don't want others to see either. For women, that shadow often contains the very traits they've been taught to suppress: ambition, anger, assertiveness, power. From a young age, girls are told to be sweet, to be agreeable, to be good. They learn quickly that strength is dangerous, that standing tall might get you labeled bossy, or cold, or unfeminine. So they adapt. They stay soft, even when they want to roar. They make themselves small, even when their soul is begging to expand. And over time, they begin to believe that their own power is something to be feared. This is how the shadow grows, quietly in the background. A woman might laugh off her intelligence to make others comfortable. She might downplay her success in relationships because she's afraid of emasculating a man. She might hide her leadership instinct because leading feels lonely and too much. But here's the paradox Jung uncovered. The more you suppress your shadow, the more it controls you. Not consciously, but subtly. You sabotage your dreams. You stay in safe relationships. You choose less than you're capable of. Not because you don't want more, but because a part of you has been trained to believe that wanting more is wrong. Real maturity begins when a woman dares to reclaim those exiled parts of herself. When she looks into her shadow and says, "I see you, and I'm not afraid anymore," because what she feared wasn't her darkness. It was her strength, her capacity to think for herself, speak with conviction, and live without permission. And the moment she embraces that power, she stops being a girl and finally becomes a woman. Number 6. Real maturity begins with radical self-honesty. Something changes the moment a woman stops blaming the world. Stops blaming her past, her parents, her exes, her circumstances. Something shifts, quietly but permanently, when she sits down, looks in the mirror, and asks, "What part of this is mine?" That's the moment real maturity begins. Not with perfection, not with having it all figured out, but with truth. Raw, unfiltered truth. Truth that says, "I've been hiding." Truth that says, "I've been waiting to be saved." Truth that says, "I've been playing small because I was afraid of my own potential." It's not pretty, it's not flattering, but it's powerful, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Many women spend years performing strength, performing independence, performing confidence, while secretly hoping someone will come along and tell them what to do. But no one is coming. That's the brutal beauty of adulthood. You either own your life, or it owns you. Carl Jung believed that true growth requires individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the self, including the ones we've rejected. That means letting go of the roles, the masks, the fantasies. That means no longer living to be liked, but living to be real. Radical self-honesty doesn't mean you stop being soft. It means you stop being fragile. It means you can still feel deeply, and hold your ground, still love fiercely, and take full responsibility for your heart, still hope for connection, without depending on anyone to complete you, because you're not half a soul waiting to be filled. You're a whole being becoming. Number 7. Individuation, the only way out. There comes a point when the game is no longer fun, when pretending to be carefree feels exhausting, when waiting for a savior starts to feel like self-betrayal. And that's when the journey begins, not toward adulthood in the conventional sense, but toward individuation, the word Jung used to describe the process of becoming a whole, independent self. Individuation isn't about fitting into society's mold. It's about breaking it, about peeling away every layer of should and supposed to, until what remains is truth. Not performance, not perfection, just presence. And for the eternal girl, the only way out is through her fear of being alone, through her discomfort with responsibility, through the silence of no longer being validated, through the darkness of meeting herself, fully, completely, without escape. This process is not easy. It requires mourning the fantasy, letting go of the fairy tale. It means accepting that youth will fade, beauty will shift, and charm will no longer be enough. But what rises in its place is something deeper, something solid. A woman who doesn't just exist to be chosen, but who chooses, who doesn't just attract attention, but holds her own space, who doesn't seek to be rescued, because she has already saved herself. When a woman integrates her shadow, when she reclaims her strength, her voice, her autonomy, when she stops performing and starts living, that is the moment she becomes unstoppable. That is the moment she becomes whole. Not because someone gave her permission, not because she met the right partner, but because she finally met herself and decided she was worth becoming. And that is the end of girlhood, not with bitterness, but with grace. So, we like to believe that with time, everything will fall into place, that eventually we'll grow up, understand life, find peace. But Carl Jung would argue, maturity isn't what happens to you, it's what you choose to become. Some women will spend their entire lives in emotional adolescence, not because they're incapable of more, but because they never stopped long enough to question the script they were handed. They'll stay busy, stay beautiful, stay distracted, and wonder why something always feels missing. Others will choose differently. They'll sit in the discomfort. They'll face their shadow. They'll stop chasing attention and start chasing depth. And in doing so, they'll outgrow not just people, but identities, illusions, even entire lifetimes of conditioning. Because real empowerment doesn't come from being desired. It comes from being known, first by yourself. It comes from recognizing that every time you avoided responsibility, silenced your voice, or waited for someone else to fix your life, you were delaying your own arrival. But the beautiful thing is this: you can begin now. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need honesty, courage, and a willingness to meet the woman underneath the performance. Jung didn't promise it would be easy, but he promised it would be worth it. Because once you stop clinging to girlhood, you don't just grow older, you grow whole.